Greetings and salutations. I'm so glad you stopped by today. I'm getting ready for a summer project. I have two treadle sewing machines. One I bought and one was gifted to me. And this summer, I'd like to get them out on the screened in porch and enjoy the summer and make a quilt. To do that, I decided to start sorting through scraps. And I've sorted these scraps into two piles. Ones that are going to make 4.5-inch blocks and ones that are going to make 3.5-inch blocks. Now, I know there's a lot of quilters out there that do 1.5 or 2.5-inch blocks. Excuse me. But I really don't like going that small. When those pieces get that small, I throw them in with the crumbs. It's the other thing I've been doing since we've been at the campground so much because of the construction in the kitchen. I've used up a pretty big percentage of my crumbs, and I don't really want to make crumbs. So I decided to sort fabric and make some blocks, which will generate crumbs. As I was pressing some of these fabrics, it occurred to me all the different quilts that these have come out of. And some of them you've seen, some of them you haven't. Let me see, which pile have I got? Have I got the 3.5-inch pile? I do have the 3.5-inch pile. I'm going to put that one over there. So, like this one, for example, I've made a couple of different Asian quilts and I've made videos about them. And I just was like, wow, it's been so long since I've done this. Um, it's really kind of a down memory lane kind of thing to make these. Now I could, so much dust, mostly because of the construction. I could sort these into color families while I'm at it, but I'm not going to. Oh, here's some. You might remember that twisted triangle quilt. Gosh, from almost a year ago now. I cut some of the pieces wrong, which I probably didn't tell you in that video. But because I did, um, and curves being what they are, there's a lot of waste. Or let me just rephrase that. There's a lot of curved pieces that are left over, and sometimes they're hard to get used up. But by making something like this, where I can just use these pieces to cut squares, then nothing's going to go to waste. Whoopsies. I just put new blades in both of my rotary cutters, and boy, are they sharp. Such pretty colors, though, don't you think? How do you guys use your leftover pieces? I don't want to call them orphans because they're not really orphans, because they're not necessarily blocks, but pieces that didn't make it into the quilt. Do you save them for another quilting project? Do you put them in the crumb box? I suppose it depends on how big the pieces are, right? Because not all not all scraps are created equal, are they? So this block made it into the twisted triangles quilt. But I also remember a good friend of mine had a daughter who graduated high school, and she wanted me to make her a t-shirt quilt. And I did, but I used this fabric for the sashing and the binding. Gosh, that's been a long time ago. I suppose I could cut more than one at a time, couldn't I? But you know, the reality is I'm kind of lazy. I like just sitting here in this chair and doing my cutting. I could stand. I mean, I'm able to stand, which after last summer, boy, that really makes you think about things again. I don't know if you recall, but last summer I had a bicycle accident and I dislocated my knee and cranked some tore a ligament and oh, but that's actually what got me to watching YouTube videos. Was I was sitting on my backside waiting for my knee to heal, and I started watching YouTube videos, and the next thing I knew, I was making YouTube videos. All right, so there's the twisted triangles blocks. Lots of those pieces. So I also had some pieces from that twisted triangle that got trimmed off because I had to square off the edges. So these are going to get cut into squares as well. Lots of earth tones. And then I have some pieces left over from I don't even know where. I kind of do. I came across this piece of fabric. Now, this is actually a border. This is all one piece. But I had cut the um, pictures out of it. I mean, it was some sort of a print and maybe a kid, I don't know what it was, but I saved these, of course. And I've been thinking about how in the heck am I going to use these? Because with that stripe down the middle, that's a little hard to work into a quilt, especially when you only have a few pieces. But then I came across some of these bits and pieces from the Rails and Strips quilt, and it occurred to me, okay, let's just cut them into blocks. Why not? Oh dear. So I don't like selvages in my blocks, but this print is gonna have a little bit of a selvage in it. Um, it'll be in the seam, so it should be fine. But the reason I'm out of crumbs or dangerously low on crumbs, I'm not really out. I took my sewing machine and my scrap box with me and made those dryer sheet crazy blocks. And I realized they were starting to look a lot alike. And that's because, well, I'm kind of down to the bottom where I need some different varieties of things. And I have made 34 of those crazy blocks, literally crazy blocks. And I think I figured out what I'm going to use them for. Boy, when I cut this, it was not cut evenly. Yipes. I have a panel, a kids panel that's very brightly colored, and I don't want to cut up the panel. But it's not really big enough to make an entire quilt out of. So I am going to use those crazy blocks as kind of borders and put a series of them around. Look at this cute little fabric. Can you see the little, it was paper doll fabric. I have no idea why I had paper doll fabric, but I do, or I did. I probably bought it just because it was so darn cute. But see what I mean? This makes a nice block. And really, I don't know what else I would do with it. So let's get it into a quilt. Now, some of these I'm going to have to really kind of work on to get them so they don't look cockeyed. I don't mind. Especially since these days I'm making mostly charity quilts. So how small are the squares you cut? Do you even cut squares out of leftover fabric to be used at an unknown future date? I was watching Sue from Small Things. That's the name of her channel. She does a wonderful job. And she's the one that does 1.5 blocks and 2.5 inch blocks. And while I can respect that, I'm not going to do it. Well, let's see what else I've got in here. Oh, here's the fabric, the 9-patch and Snowball quilt that I made for my friend Carol. I think this was hers. I don't remember where this came from. It's been a border on something, I would wager. Oh, this was a border on a kid's quilt I did. Oh, look, more Asian fabrics. Oh, here's part of the one of the panels from that Kaleidoscope. Yeah, that lap size Kaleidoscope quilt I made from the island print. Oh, I have to show you some of these. I think before I even made YouTube videos, I had Cat in the Hat fabric, and it went as a charity quilt. This fabric, though, my granddaughters, when they were small, I made them soft dolls, and then um, curled their hair and, made them clothes and all those little things. Gosh, the girls were so little. When they got a little older, they must have been about 4 and 6. I cut some squares and had them sit on my lap and sew squares together to make their dolls their own little quilt. And that's where these ladybugs came from. Oh, here's another piece that went into the kids' quilts fabric. Anyway, I'm going to keep cutting squares. If I think of any more stories to share with you, I will. Otherwise, kick back, listen to some music, and do share with me in the comment section things that you do with your leftovers. Do you plan ahead? If you plan ahead, you already are ahead of me. But do you plan on how you're going to use your scraps? Or do you just throw them in a box like I've done for years and wait for inspiration? Well, as you may have guessed, it's a lot longer than I thought it would, but I had I came up with a really nice stack of 3.5 inch squares and a nice stack of 4.5 inch squares. I wanted to show you a little bit of how all this worked out, especially with those pieces that were already strip sets. Um, Again, it started with this border, and I did cut the border up, and it looks fine. And once it looked fine, I started chopping other things up. So you can see this strip set. Let me bring you in a little closer. Yeah, it makes a good looking block. It's not bad at all. And it'll give some interest to this. Um, and then for some of the asymmetric strips, I went ahead and I just saved some of the critters that showed up. Finally, the twisted triangles block. Pardon me. I had a hard time making that cut into anything, and I didn't really want to cut all those pieces apart. So I instead decided to leave part of the curve as the block itself. And I think that kind of looks cool. And then last but not least, I was reminded that this block, oopsies, this comes out of the two-step quilt that I made about a year ago and donated last year. But anyway, then I had to find some way to store this because, getting the blocks is step one. And I found a ramen noodle box that is going to hold these and keep them together. And I will put them on a shelf out of the way until I'm ready to add to them the next time. I got rid of a ton of fabric. I didn't get rid of it. I reallocated a lot of fabric. Some of it went in the crumb box. A lot of it is in here ready for a quilt someday. Um, it really was gratifying because it really inspired me even to straighten up my sewing space and use my drawers that I haven't been using so that it makes more sense in here. And well, anyway, um, the quilt behind me, that's going to be a quilt as you go video. I'm working on it, just getting ready to put it together. Hope to see you then. Thanks for watching.